Okay, how you doing? I thought I'd talk about a couple parallels between the Judeo-Christian faith, Christianity, Judaism, uh, and the Kemetic system, just to show that the religions, the mythologies, the scriptures, the older scriptures of these religions are the same. Okay, and it goes for other religions around the world too. Even the Hindu cults in India, they had African origin. All of them. So we have, for example, in the Kemetic system, the Kemites, we have the god Shu, and he has a double character, okay, in this event, and the other aspect of the character is called An-Her, An-Her. So we have Shu and An-Her, the same individual, two different characters. So Shu, okay, goes to the edge, let's say, of the promised land, but he doesn't cross over. Okay. And her Shu crosses over into the promised land. Okay. And then we go to the Judeo-Christian tradition with Moses and Joshua. Moses led the children to the mountaintop somewhere, but he didn't cross over. He didn't cross over to the promised land, just like Shu didn't. Shu didn't cross over to the promised land. He didn't make the transformation. Neither did Moses. Now, everybody would say, well, Moses, such a great man, a great prophet, etc. Surely he went to heaven. But he didn't. According to the scriptures, he didn't. He didn't cross over. Joshua crossed over. He's the one who took the folks across. He's the one that made the crossing. He crossed over. He made the transformation. Not Moses. Moses was a child of the mother. So was Shu in the Kemetic tradition. They were children of the mother. The children of the mother don't cross over and go to heaven. You see? No. It was like, if the children of the mother didn't go, then neither did the mother. So wait a minute. We see now that we're talking about a man-dominated religion. The mothers don't go to heaven, and neither do their children. Well, in this case, they didn't. Shu didn't cross over, and Moses didn't cross over. Now, so when I say the mother tradition or the mother religion, or like Moses was a child of the mother, we're talking about a tradition. The mother tradition was ended, and the fatherhood took over. There was a change in our world in ancient times. You see? Well, anyway, when Moses goes up to the mountain to talk to God, he didn't see the front of God. He saw the hinder part. He saw the back of God. God showed Moses the hinder part. Why? Because the hinder part is the female part. The front part is the male part. And because Moses was a child of the mother, he was shown the mother part, the rump. Okay? So anyway, Moses, okay, receives the commandments and so forth and so on. Then he comes back down out of the mountain. And he goes back to his people who have been waiting for him evidently for a while. They built a golden calf. They took their gold and bracelets and everything and built a golden calf. Why? They had lost faith in this Father God stuff because Moses was going so long. So they reverted back to the motherhood, the worship of the mother, the goddess. Because the golden calf was a child of the mother. So this tells us, yes, they went back to the goddess, the motherhood. But Moses insisted, no, well, you got to go with the fatherhood, etc., etc., etc. So that's what happened. See, so we have a parallel here. Well, Shu, he didn't cross over. Moses didn't cross over either because they are both children of the mother. Now, another hint that Moses was a child of the mother was that Pharaoh's daughter found him floating around in a basket in a papyrus swamp. The basket was the womb of the mother. The water he's floating around on is the amniotic fluid. He was born again because when the Pharaoh's daughter came and plucked him out of the water, he entered into a new life. He then went from the swamps to the palace of the Pharaoh. This was a transformation for this child. But he was still a child of the mother because he was plucked out of the womb by Pharaoh's daughter. See? So both of these religions, reverted, the Kemetic religion and the Christian and the Judeo religion. They converted they went from the motherhood to the fatherhood. Well, all religions did. Well, those the religions that came after them, they went straight into the fatherhood. So we'll move on to the Asaurian tradition. That's Isis and Osiris. Or I call him Osiris. Pronounced just the same, just about. But Auset, A-U-S-E-T, Auset, instead of Isis. Well, the Auset and Osiris were in the Asaurian tradition, and sometimes their names, well, the Greeks pronounced them or put them in Greek terms, And this is where we get to Osiris and Isis, okay? So anyway, we see that Osiris, okay, in the underworld was laying on a bier as though he was dead. Or dead, they say sometimes dead. Well, anyway, he was laying on the bier, and they say he was still of heart. Well, his heart was still beating, but the old fellow was in a trance. Yeah, the pose, the death pose he was in, the death pose is still practiced in the yoga tradition. Suppose where a person lays up like he's dead, he's in a trance. But anyway, it says that his son, Heru, came and lifted his father up out of the position. In other words, he's saying that they lift him up from death. They give him a renewed life. And here Osiris assimilates to his son Heru and becomes one with him in this tradition. But now in the Christian tradition, we have Lazarus. Sounds a little similar to Osiris. But Lazarus is the guy who had died and been dead for, well, a couple of days or so. And the people went to Jesus and told Jesus. And so Jesus goes to him and raises him up, just like Heru lifted up his father Osiris. So Jesus lifts up Lazarus and bring him back to life. Well, Lazarus was in the death pose. He wasn't really dead. He was doing a yogic exercise. Both of them. That is, Osiris in the Kemetic tradition and Lazarus in the Christian tradition, they were doing yoga exercises. You see, these scriptures tell us the story about the various exercises that people must do to raise themselves up, out of what we might call a death life. We're living like dead until we transform. We're not amongst the living, the true living. Oh, it's supposed to be. According to the Kemitic tradition, the Kemites, well, at least the priests, they were living because they transformed themselves. They went through the rituals and so forth. They did the exercises and they transformed. So they became the living, But those folks who haven't done that are not really considered amongst the living. You have to, we have to pay attention when we get into this mythology and we get into the doctrine of the resurrection. I have to consider who's dead and who's alive, because they say the deceased. So the novice who enters the temple, to practice the religion, and to become amongst the living, to make the transformation. He's called the deceased sometimes. He is called the deceased. When you read this, when you first read this, you say, well, he's deceased. This guy's walking around, he's so forth and so on. How is he deceased? Yeah. Like the Christ said, okay, you must die in order to live. There must be a death in order for there to be life. So when the guy, this young fellow, he enters the temple, he goes into a state of death. He's called the deceased because he has died to the things of his earthly life. He's turned around earthly life. It seems like he has turned his back on it, pushed the earthly life back, But no, he didn't really push it back. It's still sort of in him. In other words, it's difficult to get rid of the old habits, you see. But what happened to this deceased, is that the priests in the temple, who take care of these rituals and whatnot, and these offerings and all that stuff, what they would do, they'd put the person in somewhat of a trance. This so-called deceased, this young person or old person, going through, the procedure, the process, so they put him in this type of a trance. Now, we're talking about getting rid of the old personality traits. They put him in a type of a trance. In other words, he's half asleep and half awake. And his cerebral cortex is not functioning. It's like arrested. It's not functioning, So in this state, he's in a well-balanced state. There's no opposition in him. He has no fear. All those old personality traits are now have been arrested because the cerebral cortex is not working. They had put it to sleep, In this condition, the priest can use their heka, the words of power. Okay? The words of power, okay, are able, or these words can penetrate the human body as sound does. Sound penetrates the human body. But these priests now can penetrate this individual, this novice, and transform his old personality traits into desirable personality traits, those desired by the temple. Because the priest, he becomes a member of the temple, of the novice. Once he becomes priest, he's a member of the temple. So they change these old personality traits. They transform them into the desirable personality traits. So the passion that supported the old personality traits has to be transformed, these passions, because it is the passions that support and give power to these old traits. You know, when a guy says, you're talking to a guy about his personality traits, and you tell him, hey, man, you know, you're on the wrong path. Now, he going to argue with you because he loved those traits. They are his values. These are the values that he lived by. So these traits, his bias and all, are full of passion. But they have to nullify this. They got to transform this stuff. They got to take these passions to support the new traits. They call it sublimation. You take it here and raise it to a higher cause. So they take the power that supported the old personality trait and use this power for a higher cause. That's sublimation. And so this is what happens it happened in the temples. They transformed the person by doing this. He is offering no resistance because he's like in a trance state. It was like a person when he comes, won't wake up, but he's coming slow towards waking up, but he stops. And he's half sleeping, half awake, you know, and the eyes is like, you know. In this condition, the person offers no resistance to what the priests are going to do, this, conduct this transformation in the temple. And so he offers no resistance, and he has no fears. All his feelings of pride, prestige, self-esteem, feelings of self-importance, all this stuff has been nullified. No opposition whatsoever. You know what I mean? Will the priests encounter in him because they have put him under for this period of time. You know what I mean? Or at least for the particular ritual that they might be performing at that time. I mean, he went through many of them, though. You know what I mean? He went through it. When they finished with a person coming into the temple, you know what I mean, to become a priest, they obliterate his old personality. The old personality, it is gone. That's it. So they transform. They transform the old into the new. New personality traits. This comes under this would come under the work of the god Keper. Keper is a god of transformation, a god who forms, reforms. We call him, he can be called, one of his names is Keper Ra. So he's a sun god too, you know. And Keper Ra rises in the wee hours of the morning like the sun. Okay, so here Keper Ra is a sun god who is involved in a transformation. So when a priest in the temple going to transform, okay, a person's personality traits, they call on Keper. They evoke Keper, okay, and the rituals that Keper is associated with. Keper is the beetle god. You know, somebody might see a god with a beetle's head. That's Keper, okay.